Have you ever wondered why some people get more money, more freedom, and more flexibility and still don't feel fulfilled?
Because deep down, we all know that money solves some problems, but not all problems.
And that's why today's conversation matters. A lot of people think financial independence is just about the math, but real freedom is bigger than that. Researchers like Richard Davidson and Cortland Dahl talk about the four major dimensions of human flourishing: awareness, connection, insight, and purpose.
And what's interesting is those four pillars line up almost perfectly with the financial independence journey.
Because the journey of FI doesn't just reveal your spending habits, it reveals your values, your fears, your relationships, and your sense of meaning.
So today we're talking about more than money. We're talking about what it actually means to build a life that feels whole. This is episode 188 with the Five Guys podcast. Let's get into it.
What if financial independence was never really about the money? What if the real goal wasn't just to build wealth, leave a job, or hit some magic number, but to actually build a life that feels whole, meaningful, and aligned? Because when you zoom out, that's really what most people are after. And before we jump into the episode, I want to frame this conversation with something a little more grounded in research, not just my feelings as to what people are saying their values are. Some of the modern work on human flourishing, especially the research done by Dr. Richard Davidson and Dr. Cortland Dahl, highlights the four major dimensions of well-being. And those are awareness, connection, insight, and purpose. And what's interesting is that the journey of financial independence, when done well, can actually strengthen all four of these dimensions. So today, we're not going to be just talking about money. We're going to be talking about the path to financial independence and the person you become on that journey to become better. So, Dom, when you hear the four pillars of well-being that has actually been found through the research, and just to restate it, those are awareness, connection, insight, and purpose. What's your first thought?
Well, I think it's they're in a great order. And I know that seems a little bit silly, but before we can do anything, you have to be aware. We have to be aware of life and being awake. And you know, that might come as a surprise to a lot of people, but I think you would agree with me on Chris, but I don't think most people are awake. I don't think most people are aware. I think they're just you're kind of on the drone of life. Like I wake up, I go to work, I come home, my wife spends my paycheck, right? Something like that. Something along the lines that the kids spend my paycheck or, the power bill eats my paycheck. One of the two, right? One of the three. Um, Going down the line to the connection, right? I'm excited to kind of hear what these researchers have to say on connection because I believe connection is one of the most important things in life. If we don't have connection with other humans, well, life becomes very, well, just boring, to be honest. And then insight and purpose as well. I'm excited for today's episode. I'm very excited for today's podcast, and I hope you guys are too. I got my notes out, so if you see me looking down, typing stuff on my keyboard, I'm taking notes, just as you should as well. But as always, there's still always a little description and little gems in the description of the episode, as always. But yeah, Chris, where did this kind of episode come from? I know we've been getting pretty philosophical lately, but what's the
Yeah,
deal with this one?
I've been getting a lot more philosophical in my own life and just kind of thinking, and I came across these researchers, right? And I'm trying to figure out, like, how does one live the good life, right? And like, this has been the work of our ancestors for basically all of time. Like, how do you live a good life? And sometimes you can go back to different philosophies, different religions, different things, and look at all of that and see the common truths. But it's very nice sometimes when there is modern research, and this is what we're going to be talking about today. And these four pillars are what the modern research is showing: awareness, connection, insight, purpose. So sometimes to be able to break it down to these, like, I'm not going to say simple words because those are all like very complex words when you really get into that, rather than just saying the word. Like, you can say the words really quick and be like, yeah, I get all of them. But this whole episode is going to be diving into each one of those differently and getting a little bit deeper. And then, of course, we are the Fi Guys. So the reason that this is important is that financial independence, it's way bigger than just money. A lot of people first come to financial independence because they want relief. They want out of stress. They want freedom from living from paycheck to paycheck. They want some breathing room. Maybe they want some options. But somewhere along the way, if you're doing this path the quote unquote right way, or if you're like kind of leveling up with it, you begin to come to a deeper question that starts to show up more. And that is, what is money actually for? Why am I actually building this? Because typically people come to financial independence running away from something. And if you're running away from something, that's great. But eventually, when you get away from whatever it is, you have to realize, where am I going towards? Or am I running towards something? And that's where this 4 pillars of flourishing really enters the picture. Because financial independence is often introduced as a math problem, but it's lived as a life question. Money can buy you margin, but it can never buy you something really, really important that we all need, which is meaning. Why are we here? Why do I exist? What's the purpose of all of this? So a person can be extremely wealthy on paper and still feel disconnected. They can still feel aimless. They can still feel extremely anxious. And I've met so many people along the path who are farther along than me from on the wealth perspective, way, way, way more money. And they have those feelings. And then at that point, you get to ask yourself, like, do you truly have wealth? If you have all this money in the bank, but you don't have anyone that cares about you, you don't have any purpose, you don't have any meaning, you feel scared all the time. Because true success is not just financial capacity, but the ability to actually live well with that money. So, Dom, do you think that people start their journey for financial independence with one reason in mind, and then they stay on it for a completely different one?
I mean, I would think so, right? I mean, everybody, well, maybe not everybody. One thing I've learned from this episode and from this podcast really is, don't talk in absolutes, right? There's no absolutes, right? So a lot of people, it seems like, would love to not be working, right? At least not be working for someone else. They would much rather be on a beach, right? It's kind of what your dream was at the beginning, right, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
I want to be on a beach, sipping pina coladas, and then just doing whatever I want. But like you said, that got boring really fast because you still need purpose. You still need meaning. If you don't feel useful to society, well, then it seems like your body, your mind just decides to wither away. That's why it's so important. Like they always say, like when, your parents get older, a lot older, and, they've been retired for a long time, make sure to keep them, you know, keep, make, make sure to remind them that they still have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And, I heard this quote a couple years back, and it was saying, it's kind of sad, but it was from a grandparent's perspective. And they're like, my job now is to be here for my children as memories. And I was like, that's interesting. I never thought of it like that. But no, I think oftentimes we start out on a journey with a certain goal in mind. But then it's like, once we take the first step, it's like, oh, wow. Say you're at, you go to Mount Everest. Like the goal is to summit Mount Everest. But as soon as you start, making that trek, making that climb, it's like, dude, the goal now is to survive, right? Let's not get killed by the mountain. And I think the only way to really know what your end goal is to really take that first step in any direction, because life is so much different up here in the head where we do all of our planning than it is out here in the real world. And I think it's always important to not abandon the plan, but make sure it's a little bit flexible. And what would you say to not changing the goal, Chris, but, just what would you say to kind of that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I do. And I think this is where the analysis paralysis comes in, is many people, especially like people that I coach when it comes to financial independence or getting better with money in general, is like, I can't start, Chris, until the plan is perfect, until I know every variable, everything that's going to happen. And it's like, all right, well, let me get out my crystal ball and we're going to know everything that's going to happen for your entire life. Like, this is the day you're going to die. It's going to be at this time because of this cause. And like, all right, let's make the plan. Like, now that we know that information definitively, we can do this. But that's not the way life works. So you have to be okay with making what's the next reasonable step to make. Because I think too many people, they get stuck on, like, I think the words that we use really do have a lot of power and a lot of meaning. When someone says you need to make the next right step, and people hear like, all right, right is the correct step. Therefore, I have to make the next correct step for every variable. Like, and that's impossible. So that's why I've been really trying to say, what's the next reasonable step? Maybe the next reasonable step is that I don't know, you need to do whatever you think is reasonable in this thing. And like, I can't even begin to pontificate as to what the next reasonable step is because everyone's life is different. But if you're saying that, like, your goals are going to change, I guarantee it. The path that you think that you have to go down is going to change, I guarantee it. Like, the nature of reality is change. And the reason that we all suffer is because our brains hold on to whatever it is that is current. And we say, like, all right, this needs to remain consistent indefinitely.
Yeah.
And when reality doesn't match up with our brain's way of saying this is the way it should be, that's when we begin to suffer more and more and more. So, yes, you have to be able to update the plan as it comes along because there's too many people. I'm sure we all know them in life who are like, I'm going to graduate high school, or whatever. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get this job. I'm going to do all these things. And maybe they got out of college. Maybe they got out of high school. They didn't get to go to the college that they wanted, that it was like their plan. But then they're like, all right, I'll adapt and I'll get this, I'll go to this college and I'll still do my same degree. And then they did it. And then they got out and they didn't get the job that they were supposed to have. And then most people, what do? You adapt, you come to it, but we all have people in our lives who look back on my life isn't where it is supposed to be because of what happened in high school or what happened in college or what happened in this job or that job. And that's people getting stuck to the plan that should have been and not updating. You need to be able to update your life or you're going to be really stuck. So in today's episode, what I want to do is walk through the 4 different pillars of human flourishing done by the research and connected back to financial independence, not just to say like, oh, this is all about the numbers and financial independence is the most important thing, but because I want to use money as this jumping off point to get people to talk about, okay, money is here. Yes, it's important, but life is lived out outside of the spreadsheets. Like there's far more important things than just the money.
You said something. I just want to go, just take 2 seconds to go back real quick. You said that it's like, well, yeah, maybe words do really matter. And I think you're spot on with that. And I also want to kind of extend on that too a little bit, that people really matter in your life and in your circle. A buddy of mine, he moved away. One of my good friends, right? Same kind of mentality, same, kind of wavelength, right? And he moved away, but he was on a cruise and he came back and he's visiting for a time. So I got to hang out with him yesterday and gonna see him later today as well. And I was telling him like, yeah, man, I'm doing this like furniture thing where I'm finding furniture, I'm flipping it. I really enjoy like woodworking and doing like a bunch of woodworking around the house. I was like, this is kind of like what I want to do for right now. And I was like, yeah, this is like my piece. This is the first piece that I want to sell. I have pictures of it. It's 90%, right? And I was like, well, yeah, I still need to like sand it. And then I want to top coat it again, like fix a little bit of imperfections. He's like, no, like don't aim for perfect. Just send it. Just send it. He's like, you know what? Why don't we post it right now? I was like, nah, I gotta, I gotta, I gotta sand it. And then I gotta paint again. And then I'll take some more pictures. And he's like, nah, just, just do it now. It's like, okay. And what's interesting about that is I could have, it looks fine to the untrained eye. It looks fine, right? But it's so important to have people in your life that push you when you need to be pushed and know how to push you, because without those people, I told him this. I was like, I'm stronger when I have the right people around me. And I think that's correct for everybody. The wrong people around you can sabotage an entire life. And the right people around you can build you up into something you could have never imagined. And we always say on the podcast that, you're the sum of the 5 people that you hang around. And we've kind of expanded that a little bit into, you're the sum of the 5 podcasts you listen to, right? Is what you consume, it does affect you. Right. So you got some good listeners, right? You got some good stuff coming in. But I just want to make sure that you're always choosing the right people to be around you and not to be afraid to really design a life that you want, not something that someone else wants. But I had to get that off my chest when you were talking about how words matter. I was like, it took me off the rails for a second.
It's all good. It's like, yeah, you come to the realization like, wow, it all matters.
Yep,
And like, that's why there's no silver bullet. It's really difficult because it all matters. So
absolutely.
let's go ahead and move into pillar number one. And if you guys don't remember, pillar number one was awareness. And like Dom said at the beginning of the podcast, was like, I think it's amazing that we're starting here, because most people kind of go through life almost like an NPC. And we each person looks at that like, oh, well, those other people aren't conscious, but I'm clearly conscious. But I think as you go through life and you get to know yourself better, you realize that you are habitually reacting to things. Stimulus happens and I respond in kind this way every time. Awareness is about waking up to your own life. And when we come back to in the financial independence world, that often starts with waking up to your spending habits, to waking up to your emotional triggers, and to the stories you tell yourself about money. Because money is just a tool, but the story that you choose to tell yourself about said tool is going to vary greatly. And I'm going to take it like to a place of like a gun. Like, people have a feeling of a gun, and then they tell themselves a story about it, that this gun is good or bad, but the gun is just an objective truth. It's just a thing that's out there in the world, and it does not require your judgment to be there. That's right. Two people can look at a gun and see two very different things. One can see it as a tool to protect themselves and their family, and one can see it as a tool of destruction and death. Or one person can just see it as like, oh, it's a fun hobby. Like, and no one's right and no one's wrong there. Awareness is being able to wake up to see, oh, I'm telling myself a story. I'm in what I like to call my own frame of reference. So awareness is the opposite of autopilot. Most people that you look on in life who are walking through that, you like to say like, oh, these people are just NPCs. They're on autopilot. But how many places in your life are you on autopilot? When we go back to a place of financial independence, like, people talk a lot about budgeting, and so do we. We talk about making sure that you know how much money is going out, because it's not just about tracking numbers. Tracking numbers is important. Numbers are important, but the most important thing about budgeting is noticing your own behaviors. It's about growing awareness, because your spending truly reveals your values, your priorities, and your coping mechanisms to what's going on in life. And through the act of budgeting or tracking, whatever word you want to use, it gives us awareness. And with that awareness, we can begin to make change, because you can't change that which you're not aware of. Many people don't have money problems at first. What they have is an awareness problem. Because most people that I work with, they're making money. Like, but the reason that they're messed up is because the amount of money that's going out is so much stronger than that. Makers going out so much faster, and they don't know what's happening because they're not aware. They're not actually looking at it. So what do we normally do? We focus on the wrong side of the problem. But the problem is, I'm not making enough money. I need to go and make more money. If I made more money, it wouldn't be a problem. And then we do that over and over and over again. And that's the society. But every time that my income grows, for some reason, my expenses grow, and I don't know why. It's because you're not aware. You're not actually looking at the right thing. Realizing how often people never realize like how often their spending is tied to things like stress and boredom. Like, it's tied to these emotions. So noticing lifestyle inflation, it continues to grow faster than your income grows. Like, that's awareness. Seeing how unconscious habits quietly continue to delay your freedom. If you don't notice these things, you're going to constantly be sitting there like, I don't understand. I'm doing all the quote unquote right things, but I can't get ahead. What most people do is they begin to blame society, they blame the government, they blame friends and family, but they never look at themselves to realize, how am I the common factor in everything that's happening in my life? And I'm trying to take this into place outside of just money, outside of just financial independence. It's everything. It all starts with awareness. But when it comes back to financial independence, like, FI true financial independence really begins at the moment that you stop saying, where did my money go? And you start asking, what is my money doing? And why is it doing that? And maybe you come to the realization that my money isn't doing anything. I'm the one doing it. And why am I doing that? So Dom, I just had thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Uh, but like when you think of awareness, what do you think are some of the biggest blind spots people have around it and maybe even their money?
No, I loved what you were talking about when you were talking about autopilot. How many places are you on autopilot in your life? And while you were speaking, I was like, that's prolific. I was thinking like, man, I could think of 5 or 6 places where I'm on autopilot and just s again, like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, it's like you wake up, go to work, spend the paycheck, come home, right? And it's those not necessarily that same kind of ritual, but there's definitely it's like wake up, you do this, you do that, cool, XYZ, done, right? And a lot of times, I don't wanna say autopilot is a bad thing for everything. I think some things autopilot is a good thing, wake up, go to the gym, right? I'm home, right? A good autopilot. You're saving autopilot, you're investing autopilot, right? Being a good person autopilot, right? You don't have to think about, if an old lady drops her groceries on the floor, it's not like, do I help her? Am I a good person? It's like, no, it's autopilot. Well, of course you're gonna help the little old lady, of course, right? So, I think there's definitely good autopilots and bad autopilots, but the key is to be aware of what autopilots are in play and what scripts are being, you know, kind of triggered and what scripts are running in your life. And I think that's, like you said, I mean, I think it's so interesting that you look at your budget, you see where your money is going, and that's where your focus is. That's where your energy is going. And I was looking at my own budget mentally and I was like, oh, wow, my money is going XYZ. And this is why it's going there because I'm trying to do this. And I thought that was really interesting. So I think like everybody should go home, look at their bank statement, and be like, hey, where's all your money going? Is it all going to Chipotle? Why is it going to Chipotle? It's not because of the burritos are good, but like you want to eat healthier, but you also don't have enough time to meal prep. Maybe you like Chipotle, right? And I think it's interesting to go deeper and deeper on everything that we're doing and all the actions that we're taking consciously and subconsciously to better understand who we are and who we're becoming. And if it's not someone that we want to, continue becoming, right? If it's like, oh, wow, I spent $100 on cigarettes this week and 200 on alcohol. It's not me. I don't do that. But, if that was the case and it's like, wow, it's not really what I envisioned for my life. Well, good. That's step 1, right? That's pillar 1. It's being aware, and I think it's absolutely brilliant, that you take a look at where all of your money or your quote unquote energy is going. I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah. And I think so many people, like I know from my coaching, when you ask somebody like the purchases you make, and most people, I'm gonna talk about women right now, but a lot of the women that I speak with are usually like, oh, I have to buy these clothes, these jewelry, these specific purses. Purses usually comes up as like a very big thing when I'm talking with people. I ask like, well, what are you getting from that purse, right? Like what is it that you get? And I'm like, well, I like this, I like that about it. Like it's this, it's that. I'm like, okay, but like, what are you getting from it? And then you keep on asking the question, and then they'll keep on like talking about the quality and these things. But what are you actually like? What are you getting from it? And I think this is where most people get stuck. They feel that they found the bottom, and most people, when they say that, like, well, they usually get frustrated. And be like, I like it. Okay, I like it. Like I like it, and they're like, that's it. Like that's the bottom. That is me knowing myself. I like it. But the deeper that I've gone into the rabbit hole of understanding my own brain, the more you realize like the rabbit hole doesn't really have a bottom, or if it does, I don't think I'm anywhere near it. Like I don't know anyone who is near the bottom of the rabbit hole of knowing yourself, because just saying you like it, that's not the bottom. Like there's definitely a thing underneath that you can go, and then underneath that and underneath that. So This is where the second pillar comes in. And that second pillar is insight. Because if awareness is noticing what's happening, insight is understanding why it's happening. So, insight, where it pertains to our discussion around financial independence journey, this is where insight gets extremely personal. Because awareness, that's information, that's good. But now we need to know why, the deeper reason of why is this happening to me. Insight is so much deeper than just information. It's not just about knowing what to do, but understanding your patterns, your scripts. Money behaviors often reflect your identities, your fears, your family history, your emotional conditioning. And financial independence can force people to really confront beliefs like, I need more to feel safe. Rest has to be earned. If I want to be able to chill, I have to be able to earn it. Success means looking successful. And if I slow down, if I falter, I have zero value or I have less value. Some examples might be like a saver who is secretly driven by fear, not by freedom. Like I save money not because I want to be free, but because I'm afraid. I'm afraid to that something can go wrong, which of course we have to be. But are you running from something? Or are you running towards something? And understanding yourself at a deeper level so that you understand these things. Maybe another example might be a spender who uses consumption to chase their own self-worth. No judgment, but that's where when I was talking about the purses, the things of like, I need these things because I like it, because I like it. All right, Chris, stop asking me your question. Just it's because I like it. Because most people, if from working longer enough, are like, oh, it's because this purse, this item makes me feel the way that I want to feel, which is valuable. It makes other people look at me and be like, wow, that person has made it. And that makes me feel I have a higher self-worth. Another example might be a high earner who still feels financially behind. We all know those people. So you can see it in yourself. When you right out of college, making whatever amount you were making, you're like, man, the moment I get this raise or when I make it to six figures, I'll finally make it. And you get there and you're like, okay, I was wrong. Like it was actually this number, it's this number, it's this number. Everyone compares themselves to somebody else. And again, it's insight. It's understanding like, oh, I'm the problem. I've rose up, I've leveled up multiple times, yet I keep on searching to be to the right place, but I'm the problem here. A lot of people don't need another spreadsheet in their life. What they need is a more honest conversation with themselves as to why they keep on finding themselves in these same situations. And the reason that you are able to have that is through your own insight, through questioning yourself. And don't believe your own bullshit because we are the easiest people in our lives to lie to. So, Dom, how much of financial independence do you think is really psychology in disguise?
I think honestly, everything is psychology in disguise, from what you eat to what you do to how you spend it. I can't think of anything that doesn't get affected by psychology in one way or another. And maybe you guys can, maybe I'm wrong. Stump me if you think there's something that doesn't get affected by psychology. Please leave it in the comments down below. But you know, psychology. I mean, it's the study of everything. It seems like there's nothing that it doesn't affect. But I wanted to go back actually and ask you a question on one of the things that you were mentioning. How fear oftentimes can drive someone. Is that something you said you see a little word salad for a second? Um, you said you see that a lot, right? Where it's like, oh, well, a good saver. I'm a saver. I'm saving because I don't want to run out of money, and but then you never spend any money, right? But would you say that fear is a good motivator, or is it a healthy motivator, or is it neither at all?
Yeah, I think I don't want to say like it's a good or a bad. The only reason I would say it is because It depends on the situation. It depends on you. Like, is it serving you? If the fear is serving you to get started, to continue to do it, yeah. I mean, because most of the time, fear is the thing that triggers you to get started. Like if I'm laying in bed and I know like, oh, I should probably go do my cold plunge, I should probably go start, but I don't have a little bit of fear of like, if I don't do it, like I know what's going to happen. I know I'm not going to feel good about myself. I know I'm going to go down these like little rabbit holes in my brain of I say one thing and do something else. So yeah, there's a little bit of fear there that helps me. And there's also, I do it because of the benefits too. So I'm not going to say that fear is a bad thing, but it can become a bad thing if it's just what you focus on all the time. And like the reason that I brought that up specifically is because for me, like I live a lot in fear. And like that's just like like that's a true example of myself. Of like, hey, I want to save money. I want to be financially independent. Probably more because I'm afraid of not. I'm afraid of going back to where I've been more than the joy of like getting to where I want to go. And that's knowing myself and trying to figure out like what is it that I'm afraid of and going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. And the more that I believe I found the basement, like, okay, I'm here, like I'm on the level. I can't go any deeper than this. You end up understanding yourself a little bit more through, your history, through understanding most of the time it's just knowing a better story about yourself and where you come from. And that could be genetics, that could be upbringing, that could be your great 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 grandfather told your great 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 grandfather something, and then that passed down to your great grandfather and blah and on down until you just heard some crazy information that you took to be true and you just ran with it. So to answer your question, like no, I don't think fear is a bad thing, but if it's taken to an extreme is a bad thing. We
And
can
how do
have
you
too much
know?
air. You can have too much oxygen. You can
Yeah.
die from those from too much oxygen. You can die from too much water. The things that you need to live can kill you.
And focusing on the awareness kind of object, I guess. Um, how do you know when you're in control of the fear or the fear's in control of you?
Hmm. I
Because
don't
I
know
feel
if
like
you.
that's
I
like
don't
a
know if
real like
you.
fine line. It's a tough balance sometimes, and oftentimes I feel with fear, we never really feel in control. At least that's been somewhat of my perspective. I'm not courageous all the time, but oftentimes, there's moments of courage. But I'm curious to hear your take on that.
Yeah, and I go back to this as like, is this thought serving me? And then that's where it really comes down to like, what is the greater purpose of my life? Like, what am I trying to do? If the fear stops you from doing whatever it is that you believe to be your like highest calling, then no, it's not serving you anymore. And the fear is winning. If you're the guy or the gal who's like, my dream in life is to be a singer. And like I have an amazing voice. I always want to do it. Yet the fear of embarrassment is holding you back, then yeah, the fear is a problem. But if you're the person who's an amazing singer, you're like, hey, I don't want to run around screaming or doing things. I don't want to hurt my voice because I have this calling in life. Well, then the fear of losing your voice, it's adaptive because you have a higher calling, which is to use your voice or whatever your thing is to solve this bigger purpose, to serve your life in whatever way that you believe it to be. And in just my assumption, this is only me, is like we use our talents, our gifts to grow in the service of others. And by serving others, we serve ourselves. 'Cause, like, my belief is that we're all one conscious entity. Like, we're all one thing. And like all of suffering, all of this pain, and everything we see in life from other people that you look outside and you see these people that are awful is because they forgot that. They forgot that no one in this world comes in alone. No one leaves this world alone. You are part of a greater whole. So you need to be able to understand that. And that's where, again, all this awareness comes from. But you have to understand that only do that, only think and believe that which moves you towards your goals. That's what serves you. So you have to ask yourself that question when you feel the fear, when you feel the guilt, when you feel the sadness, the happiness, the joy, the anger, the surprise. Is this serving me? And there's no right or wrong answer there because it's personal. Just like finance, just like all of the stuff we talk about, it's personal.
And I think also, when you ask the question, which is such a powerful, powerful question, is this thought or is this thing serving me? It goes down to like the root and the core of who you are. It's like, well, how do I know if it's serving me? It's like, well, you'll feel it, right, Chris? It's not something that you'll always know, but something that you would feel more often than know.
Hmm. I don't know because I mean, I guess that's the goal, right? Is to align the heart and the head, and the gut, and like
Yeah.
to understand like all of those things. There's a scene in Ted Lasso where Ted's talking to Rebecca, and she's like trying to make this decision, right? Of like, do I do this or do I do that? Like, what do I do? And he said, what I would do is don't listen to anybody. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to your mom. Don't listen to your friends. Listen to your head. Go listen to your gut. And as you're checking between those two things, check it in between and listen to your heart. If all those three things align, I think it's going to work out. I think like majority of life is coming to the understanding that it's okay if it works out and it's okay if it doesn't work out. It just is. And just to continue to live your life in whatever way feels best, but not only to you, but also to the group, because there's too many people in this world that focus just on feeling what's best for them. But if you forget that you're part of a greater whole, you can cause a lot of suffering by just focusing on yourself. And it comes back around in the wash. Like it will come back and bite you in the ass. So it also is self-serving.
Definitely. Well, I brought us on a little bit of a tangent with that one. Um, are we on number pillar 3, if I'm not
We're going
mistaken?
to move on to that now. And actually, that was actually a perfect transition. So, because pillar number 3 is about connection. And what we just talked a lot about there was about connection. And this is the pillar that most people completely miss, especially when it comes to money, because money is more often like not very often just personal. It pretty much always affects relationships because we don't live by ourselves. We live in relation to other people. So financial choices impact your spouse, your kids, your friends, your business partners, your community. Decision that you choose to make with your money impacts everything. Even if you decide, I'm not going to give it to anybody, I'm just going to hoard it like a dragon, like that still impacts your family. It impacts your kids. It impacts business partners. It impacts the community because rather than letting the money flow, you're going to guard it up. Financial independence can strengthen your connections when it's done to share your values and to share who you are as a person. But it can also damage connections when it turns into isolation or obsession. Community matters because freedom without belonging can feel extremely empty. How many people would choose to be like, all right, I want to be super free. I want to be free. I want to have all the money in the world, but I'm never going to be able to talk to another person. I'm going to be completely alone on my own little island, no internet, no nothing. Or no, maybe you have internet, I don't care, but you can't connect with people. You can just watch YouTube videos. You can be alone. I, I wouldn't take that. Like that sounds awful. You're just going to be alone all the time, but you have everything that you want. Like it sounds like very Orwellian. It sounds like something that you would see in like a Black Mirror episode, right? Or like a Twilight Zone. You know, you win everything, but you lose it all too.
And even with, still going on YouTube and watching YouTube videos, I mean, the basis of YouTube is to go and connect. I mean, when you're watching this podcast, we're not two androids just feeling you with, nonsense. It's like, no, we're two people in the world experiencing different things in our lives that are, we're trying to share it. So I think even in that, even in the subconscious where it's like, oh, you can still look at YouTube and the internet. It's like, well, YouTube's about connection just like everything else, and I think I just had to point that out real quick.
Yeah. I want to give some examples of this connection because connection it's so important because again, we don't live alone. You don't live in a vacuum. Like you don't live in isolation. You live in relation to other people. No one is brought into this world alone. Like no one willed themselves into existence. You exist because of other people, because of your parents, and they exist because of their parents, and on and on and on the cycle goes, all the way to the first person or the first whatever that came up. So you have to be able to understand that like we all live in connection with people. And some of the places where I see this becoming a real issue is like couples who aren't aligned with the goals. Like what goals are we moving towards? And so often, especially with couples, they feel like you're fighting against me. I'm trying to get here and you're fighting against me without ever asking like, hey, are we both trying to get to the same place? Do we have the same goals? Because I feel like I'm paddling north and you're paddling south. It's like, well, yeah, I'm trying to get south. But the other guy's like, well, I'm trying to get north. So, you need to be able to make sure you align with your goals. And these are just conversations to have. And you can say couples like romantic partners, it could be business partners, it can be friends. Like a couple doesn't need to just be your, your sexual relationship. It can be something far more. It could be anything. One person pursuing financial independence while the other feels dragged along for the process. And I've seen this a lot too, where like normally it's the husband who gets on like, we're going to be financially independent because I'm tired of working, all this stuff. And the wife's like, I don't want to do that. Like, I like working. I enjoy what I'm doing. Why do you want to take that away from me? It's like, because like I'm tired. And now you can have like, again, it's a discussion. Like, but if you don't have these discussions, you don't use money as a way to be able to connect. You can have all of the things. And again, take it outside of just money. Like it's everything. Connection is one of the most important things because the importance of a shared vision instead of just financial control is what we're trying to get towards. Like, what's the vision that we're trying to move towards, and how can we use money to help facilitate that growth? Using money as a tool to serve others and not just protect yourself is the reason that we're talking about this. Like, how can we use our God given talents, and maybe that's our money, to be in service of others? And by being in service of others, you're also serving yourself. So, if your version of freedom disconnects you from other people that you love, it may not be the freedom that you're looking for. In fact, it's probably not freedom at all.
More of a prison, seems like.
A prison that you created by focusing just on the money and forgetting that the connection is really what the money was all about. Because most people, they say, like, I want more money, I want more time, I want more of these things. Well, what do you want it for? So I can do things with my family, so I can do things serving other people. So, Dom, do you think that people can pursue financial independence without becoming rigid, isolated, or overly self-focused? Because most people come to financial independence focusing on the self of like, I need to do this in order to protect me. So can you run this knife's edge, this terrible dynamic, and be able to do it, quote unquote, the right way without becoming rigid, isolated, focused just on me, the self?
It seems like everybody has a moment in their life where they choose financial independence, where they choose like, hey, I'm done. I'm tired. I want to break free. And it's usually a moment of great stress and great disconnect from like we talked about, the heart, the mind, the body, the gut, right? Um, I think there's definitely a period of time where it's like, I am not going to let anybody stand in my way. I'm going to pave my own way, whether I have to bulldoze over you. I'm going to go my own way. And that's kind of a pendulum swing, it seems like, from, hey, like I was mistreated at this job. I wasn't paid. I wasn't paid enough. I wasn't valued. I don't like working for someone. And the pendulum swings and I'm going to be my own man. I'm going to do my own thing and I'm going to bulldoze over. I don't care what anybody says. I'm going to do it my way. Right. And the right way is when it swings back to the middle, right? Because the middle path is typically the best path. But I do believe that, yeah, the only way going forward, if we're talking about longevity and actually having someone at the end of the journey, right, to actually spend your life with is, well, yeah, you have to soften the edges a little bit. You can't be so rough and rigid that, it's my way or the highway. Well, that that works if you're, if you're a warden, but that's not life. We need the connection and we need to maintain relationships. And it's important to be flexible along the journey, but not forget the direction.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of funny how it all kind of comes back to to awareness, right? Like it's like a circle. It's,
It does.
it's like it's a circle. Um, and like, where does the circle begin and end? And it doesn't. Like it's the same thing. So let's move on to pillar number 4. And I don't want to say that any of these pillars are better or worse or anything like that, because they're all required. But purpose is where the financial independence journey either matures or completely collapses. Because eventually, if you are on this journey of financial independence, you're going to have to answer the question: if I get the freedom that I say I want, what am I actually going to do with it? And this is where a lot of people end up really collapsing their lives. And we've heard about it, like, to retire is to expire. Once you retire, you have a few more years and you're done. Like, all of these things, like, they're little tropes, but they're truth. And they're truth because without that greater purpose, what are you here for? Because financial independence, it's an extremely powerful tool. But your purpose in life tells you where the tool should go. How am I going to use the tool? Because you have just this amazing tool, but you have no purpose, then you just have this amazing tool that doesn't do anything. It'd be like, I'm going to save up all this money to buy this amazing tool. It costs $1 million tool. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's an AI thing or a table saw, whatever it is. You get it, and you're like, all right, you got your cool tool. What are you going to do with it? You're like, I don't know. I don't know how to use it, and I don't even like. And you're into woodwork, Dom. Like,
Yeah.
be like you saying, like, be like me, because I'm not really into woodwork. Be like, hey, Dom, I'm gonna buy this amazing table saw, like something that's like your dream. And then I get it. And you're like, Chris, what are you gonna do with it? You're like, I don't know. I have it, but I don't really like woodworking, but I have it. So without that purpose, it's almost the same thing. Escaping work is not the same as moving towards your meaning. And too many of us, again, we focus on the running from something, but not the running towards something. And this is the crux of the issue, because retirement without any purpose will feel hollow. It'll feel like you made it to the end of the race and you were tricked to, like, run a race that you shouldn't have run. And that's where people will, like, say, like, oh, financial independence is a trap, because you're going to get there and realize that you didn't want to be there, that, like, purpose was actually in the journey. And yeah, like, that's it. Even when you get to the end of this journey of financial independence, like, the race isn't over. It only ends when you finally, like, die. So you have to continue to keep on doing that purpose, because purpose, in truth, we're so big on systems and structure here at the Fi Guys. Purpose gives structure to the freedom that financial independence gives you. So some examples of this might be building a business without any intention as to where it's going to go, spending more time with your business than with your family. Maybe an example of some good things might be spending more time with your family. Some examples of things you can do for purpose is creating, mentoring, volunteering, teaching, designing a life based on contribution rather than just consumption. The point of financial independence is not to do nothing with your life. It's to gain the freedom to do what matters most to you. So, Dom, why do you think so many people spend years chasing freedom, but never really define what freedom is actually for?
Well, it's like we say, it's not always about the answers, but it's about the questions we ask ourselves. And oftentimes we don't even, it's not that we don't know the answers. It's like we don't even know the right questions to ask, but it's through further self exploration, I guess you could say, and really meditating and understanding what you want. So then you can kind of start learning what the correct questions are. So then you can start learning what the right answers are. I think too often again, we're on autopilot. We lack awareness. I mean, even the people who are most awake, most aware, we all serve a different autopilot, whether that's something that's built in or something that we built, whether that's a prison of someone else's design or a prison of our design. And it's funny to me that you say, no one pillar is more important than another one. And I agree. I agree. And I think, but I will say that maybe that I might align with a certain pillar more
Mhm.
right now than I do a different pillar. And I'm sure it'll switch up as time goes on. But I mean, man, it really is a circle. It's crazy how much of this is a circle, and they really did a great job with their research on this one. But I think, designing a life with the end in mind is important. But like you said, I've been taking notes here. How can we use our talents to be in service of others? And I think that that truly is the human experience. I think that's the most human things we can do. And like you said, purpose gives structure to the freedom. And without purpose, well, you have no structure. And there's no structure, then it seems like there's no freedom. It's just another prison. But finding purpose can be very difficult.
Yeah, it is. And we've done a few podcasts on that. And again, there's no right answer. There's
No,
no, there's
no.
no right answer. There's probably, but there's many wrong answers as to what your purpose is. And I think the goal of the podcast is to try to make people realize that like money is great, but money is not the purpose that you are seeking in your life. So please be extremely cautious of that. So in our next segment, or as, and I guess in our final segment before we go to our action step, I want to bring all of this together because when you put all of the four pillars together, again, awareness, insight, connection, purpose, the financial independence journey starts to look a lot different. It's not just, okay, I need to earn more, I need to spend less, I need to invest the difference, and I can retire early. Like, is that part of it? Of course, that's part of it. But what the journey becomes is, am I aware of how I'm living? Am I gaining insights into why I make the choices that I make? Am I building connections to the people that I want to impact in my life? And is the purpose that I'm growing, is it giving me the freedom of meaning? Is it is it giving me freedom? Freedom in not just life, but in my purpose. Like, is the purpose giving me freedom, and is the freedom giving me purpose? They both work together again, like that freaking circle analogy. And that's why financial independence at its best is not just a wealth building strategy. It's a personal development journey. And that's the goal, right? To continue to grow, to get better for yourself, to be in service of others. So, Dom, if someone is listening right now and they realize they've been focusing on the money side of financial independence, and maybe they're like, all right, maybe I should focus somewhere else. Where do you think you would start in that situation?
So if you're not focusing on the money side,
You are,
let's focus.
you're just focused on the money, but
You're
like
just
now,
focused on the money. Gotcha. So if you're just focused on the money and, you know, finding another place to start, right? Um, depends on how far in your journey and how well you know yourself, I guess. Um, if you don't know yourself, well, then you don't know what direction to go in. And that's okay because most people don't know themselves. It's okay. But it's time to like let's learn about ourselves. Let's know ourselves. And I keep thinking about what you said from the Ted Lasso show. If it's good in the mind, it's good in the heart, it's good in the gut, commit to it. Right. I hope I didn't miss any organs on that one. I know last time I said if it's good in the body too, and I'm like, I don't think that's what he said. But no, it really does all stem from knowing yourself and really understanding where you want to go with your life, and who do you want to help? Who do you want to impact? Who do you want to bring along for the journey? I think it's important to not just keep these conversations with yourself though too. I think it's important to share it with a friend, right? Swear this isn't a promo. Um but no, I think it is important to have these dialogues with someone who is like-minded, who is on, a same level or similar level as you, so that you can kind of get a different perspective. Because sometimes things look different from an outside view, but like we said at the beginning of the episode, it does really matter who you have around you. It's not just it's like, oh yeah, that's Joe. He's super negative. Yeah, that's just who he is. Like, no, that rubs off on you. That affects you. Um,
And the reason I asked you that question, Dom, is
mhm.
almost to show the listeners like it's a really difficult question to answer. But the thing that I want people to realize is that financial independence, like this whole journey, isn't just about the money, and like it's not. Financial independence is not just a math problem. It's a human problem, and trying to figure out like what's the purpose of this life. Am I being aware? Am I being insightful? Am I being connected? Am I being purposeful? These are the four pillars of human well-being. And like that's what we want at the end of our lives when we leave this world is like to be a human who lived well. No one at their deathbed is going to say, "Man, I wish I worked more." No one's going to look back and be like, "Yeah, I worked so many hours a week. Like I was so freaking great. Like I did it." No, that's not going to happen. No one on their deathbed says that. No one on their deathbed said, "I wish I made more money." And if they do, I bet they're alone. It's not the great way to do it. Like most people are going to look back, and that's where I begin. That's where I begin the journey. When someone asks, like, "What's the purpose?" Is I begin at the end. When I'm dead, like, what things are people going to say about you? And that's the nice thing about your values, your pillars of your life is that you're never going to reach it. You're never going to, and that's the beauty of this is like you're never going to be completely self-aware. You're never going to be completely insightful. You're never going to be completely connected. You're never going to find complete purpose. But when someone passes away, those are the things you take with you. You take those things with you. You don't leave them behind onto whatever the next journey is, or just to be remembered as like someone that was aware, who was insightful, who was connected, who was purposeful. And you're never going to get there. But a lot of people, they'll go through life saying, why would I focus on these things that anyone can have? I'd rather focus on making money or doing this thing because other people can do it. At least I can say that I did it. But then again, are you doing that for yourself? You doing it for other people? Why are you going to go for an entire journey this whole time hating life or not enjoying it so that people will remember you well after you're dead? But you didn't enjoy it while you were here. So what does it even matter? Because you're dead anyways. Before we get to the action step, Dom, do you have any
No, I I
extra
think it
thoughts?
I think yeah, no, I think it's interesting. It's like you can hate your life living a life that someone else wanted you to live, or you can love your life choosing to help people the way you want to help people and living for other people. I don't know. It's just, man, this philosophy journey is it's an interesting one, and it continues to baffle my mind. I guess it will always baffle my mind as I continue like Alice down the rabbit hole. But no, yeah, what's the next step, Chris?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So here's our challenge for the week. And what I want you to do is write down these four questions and just answer them for yourself. Awareness. Where am I living on autopilot with my money? And again, these are all going to be financial, but if you want to take out the money part, take out the last two words that I'm going to say on each one of these and say, hey, like, where am I living on autopilot in my whole life? So awareness, where am I living on autopilot with my money? For insight, What beliefs or fear might be driving my financial behaviors? And again, if you want it to be for real life, what fear or drivers are driving my behaviors? Connection. How are my money choices affecting the people around me? And the final one is purpose. What is the life I actually want money to support? Because the goal isn't just to become financially independent. The goal is to become the kind of person who knows what to do with the independence when it arrives. So if this episode helped you think differently about money, think differently about freedom, and the bigger picture of your life, Dominic and I ask you to do just one thing. Please share it with a person. You can take this video link, text this podcast link, and just send it to anybody in your contact list that you think might benefit from hearing the conversation. And if you're building wealth, but trying to do it in a way that actually lines up with who you are and what matters most, and I can tell you that you're in the right place and you're on the right path. So Dom, do you have any thoughts on the action steps?
Man,
Again,
that was
it's about the questions you ask.
that was I loved those action steps. Yeah, I think that's that should be like Dom's lessons is literally answer the 4 questions and then go back and, like Chris said, take the money out of it and answer the questions again, right? Awareness. What am I living on autopilot with? Money. Obviously, take the money out. Like, what are you living on autopilot? You know, what areas are you living with autopilot? It's just going through each one of them and removing the money aspect. Also, do the money one first, but then take out the money and answer the question that way. I mean, these are some prolific questions. These are some deep questions that I think have the potential to shift your life in a very positive way. And man, yeah, how are my choices affecting the people around me? Mm, What belief or fear might be driving my behavior? What is life? What is the life I actually want to support? Mm, Some deep ones right there. You're cutting deep with those questions, Chris. These are beautifully crafted. But I do believe that, sit with yourself, write these questions out, and answer them honestly. See if we can
Yeah.
get some change.
And sit there with a journal. If you like to journal, sit there, open up a voice note like I do, and just talk to it and let consciousness, or sit and meditate, or just go on a walk. Like, it doesn't matter. And just think on it. They all work. And I do all of them and they all work. So Dom, will you close this out?
Absolutely. Well, this is going to do it for today's episode. If you didn't get anything out of it, I would check your pulse, honestly speaking, because this was an absolutely breathtaking episode full of wonderful gems. I would love to hear about all your guys' notes down in the comment section below. And listen, if you comment, I'll comment my notes. How about that? So, with that being said, make sure to share this with a friend, a family member, share it in a Discord community or a group chat. Don't be afraid to impact someone else's life, because today could be the day that this episode reaches another person and helps another person. But remember, it's always important to not just listen, right? It's important to take action, because education without action is just entertainment. And with that being said, I'm Dom, he's Chris, and we will see you guys in the next one.
Later.
Peace.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor. It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.